welcome everyone to the 9th RPG Sanctum, the ideal setting where our topic for the night is going to be our favorite settings throughout RPGdom. With me tonight I have Nathan Slothan.
Hello.
Sam Marcello.
I have massive boogers.
Cassandra Ramos.
Hello.
And Scott Wachter.
I miss when steampunk had punk in it.
Alright, Scott, this is the first time we've had you on the show, so what is your IRC handle and what do you do for the site?
I am Foul Sorceress. I do all the tabletop type news, reviews, and interview type stuff.
Scott,
but none of you seem to care.
Well, it's because it's all tabletop and no one plays tabletop anymore. At least no one with self-respect.
You're asking for them to be fighting words. You're asking for it.
Yes,
You're saying it to the wrong person.
Well, you know, I have genuinely tried to get into tabletop, and it's never been a joyous experience.
Did it involve hover bikes, Roy? Because hover bikes make everything better.
They probably do. I mean, I've tried a few times with Phil with his tabletop sessions, and those were always late at night, and they put me to sleep. And I've had some experience with the Dungeons and Dragons PC games, and I've never understood what the heck was going on. I've always just kind of winged it.
Yeah, that's usually how it goes.
Alright, for those that don't know, officially Scott is the head of our saving throw column. / anything and everything tabletop related.
Yeah, the column that's not a column.
That used to be a column.
It's the column that it's whatever the heck we need it to be for that particular tidbit.
Indeed.
Alright, so going on to our main topic for the night, which is everyone's favorite settings. So, Sam, start off with you. What is your favorite settings in all of RPGs?
I don't have one. Okay, what I will say is I'm someone who really doesn't enjoy fantasy settings. I accept when they're there. I'm kind of bored of them lately. I've been enjoying a lot of games where the setting might be closer to steampunk or cyberpunk. Like, I tend to enjoy more settings like that. Also, the more apocalyptic, the better. So
was the Fallout setting a winner for you?
Oh, yes. Too bad Fallout is non-linear, and I get lost a lot, and not in a good way. There's usually a lot of yelling and screaming involved when I play Fallout, so yeah. I love the setting, the whole getting lost thing. I don't know, I'm still getting used to it. Oh, and I do like urban fantasy, but we'll get into that at some point.
Alright, Scott, what's your favorite setting?
Deadlands.
You need to explain what that is, sweetheart.
Expand upon that for us.
Okay, Deadlands is a tabletop game created by Pinnacle Entertainment, created specifically Shane Hensley, super awesome dude, and it is a weird historical, alt history, fantasy, horror, and steampunk setting where a whole bunch of crazy stuff happens towards the end of the American Civil War that results in it going much longer, and a half-dozen new states seceding from the Union as a result. And it's, kung fu monks fight steampunk robots and mad scientists on a railroad operated by Zombie Lincoln. I'm serious, Zombie Lincoln runs a railroad.
Sweet.
There's like 7 railroads also, all trying to get across the continent.
Well, there's a key winner right there for a setting. Zombie Lincoln.
Zombie Lincoln, the Ghost of Robert E. Lee, Baron Sam D., a witch, and one of the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. They all run railroads.
The 4 horsemen.
Yep.
No, just one of them.
Just one. Just one.
Which one?
I believe Pestilence.
I gotta love your disease. Alright, Cassandra, what's your favorite setting?
I also don't have like a favorite general setting. I like whatever is unique or original, whether it be fantasy, sci-fi, or urban fantasy, what have you. Although I haven't really played any urban fantasy games that I feel were unoriginal at all. I haven't played too many. Just Shin Megami Tensei, Devil Survivor, The World Ends With You. I suppose Pokemon could kind of count. But yeah, so just whatever is original.
Pokemon's just a thing.
Well, it's kind of like modern times, except very different.
Well, Pokemon's setting is so poorly thought out. It's like, here's some Pokemon. Let's make everything revolve around that. That's a
They're
setting.
gods. What else is new?
Alright, Nathan, what's your favorite setting?
I like a lot of things, I guess. I'm pretty sure the further away it looks from reality, sometimes the better. Sometimes I like it when it looks like reality too. I like a lot of stuff like modern cool stuff, like say the Persona series, and The World Ends With You in particular was a really cool setting. So yeah, just cool, totally modern spins on the idea of fantasy. I also like more wild stuff, like a lot of things come to mind. But one of my absolute favorites probably has to be the Breath of Fire Dragon Quarter setting, simply because the setting itself is so... I don't know, the setting itself is kind of your enemy in the game. It's just the entire point of the game is to escape the setting. The setting itself is so incredibly oppressive and atmospheric, and it drives the entire game, and that's why I like settings to do. I like settings to be important to the game and to this game's story, rather than just background fluff. So that's the kind of thing I like.
And speaking of the everyone's favorite setting, we do have an audio clip sent to us from Otaku Densetsu about his favorite setting, and we're going to play that real quick.
Hello, RPG Sanctum. Otaku Densetsu here. And I've got to chime in on this topic, ideal setting for RPGs, because I do believe that the medieval fantasy setting is ideal and most prominent in the RPG, in the genre of RPGs. I do have to say that the steampunk setting I've only just really discovered in Sakura Wars on the Nintendo DS, and it although I have played it before in Shadow Hearts, in I guess the third Shadow Hearts game. It's the steampunk setting. It just seems that there's a lot of untapped potential that I would really like to see in more RPGs. So, although I would have to agree that the ideal setting for an RPG is medieval fantasy, as most of them are, I would have to say that the steampunk setting has so much that you can do with it. And I also have to add that the futuristic setting, I can't say really works, because like when you play like a Star Ocean game and you're beating up enemies with a sword or whatever, it just seems like they should just be using guns and like Star Trek or Star Wars or whatever, lightsabers. And I just have to say that the futuristic setting, it works for Star Ocean, but it didn't work really. I didn't find that it worked really for Resonance of Fate. I just felt that game. First of all, that game was needlessly difficult, and but the battle system was good. It wasn't. It's not that it was. Well, it was futuristic, but I just find that actually the setting in Resonance of Fate. I will have to just correct myself. I will say that the setting in Resonance of Fate was really it was decent, but it's just that the the game was needlessly difficult. But it seems that when you go with a medieval setting. Medieval fantasy, it seems like you're not really setting the game up to be difficult or anything new that people have to adjust to. But when you go with a futuristic setting, it seems that you're asking people to get used to a whole new environment, and it doesn't work. Futuristic settings should be left for other genres. So I would say the ideal setting. I won't argue that it is medieval fantasy, but the steampunk setting is a setting that is just not getting used properly, and I'd like to see a lot more games using the steampunk setting. That's it. So this was Otaku Densetsu chiming in on the ideal setting for RPGs.
All right, and that was one of our resident listeners of the show, Otaku Densetsu, arguing for his favorite setting of steampunk. All right, I guess one big thing that we can compare is the big gap between settings you find in Japanese versus Western RPGs. Nathan, what do you think is probably which one has the more unique settings in it?
Going to a controversial topic, huh? Well, I don't normally really enjoy Western RPG versus Japanese RPG kind of debates, but in this case I'll say Japanese RPG is generally much, much, much more towards being creative, simply because, I don't know, I mean, even the oldest of Japanese RPGs, like the original Final Fantasy, have crazy things like robots and flying sky towers and all kinds of things like that, while Western RPG, I don't know, I mean, even the BioWare is like the big good name in Western RPGs. They tend to make stuff like Dragon Age, which, while it's a great rendition of Tolkien fantasy, it's still kind of old Tolkien fantasy from World War II-ish era, which is with the molds scraped off and a fresh coat of paint. A good fresh coat of paint, but still just a fresh coat of paint. Mass Effect, yes?
I was going to say, I'm going to kind of respectfully disagree about it being kind of Tolkien fantasy. When I played Dragon Age 2, I felt it was closer to like something George R. R. Martin works on.
Yeah, the original Dragon Age is more Tolkien with the big horde of evil enemies and just elves and dwarves.
I haven't played the first one. I just know the second one I was like didn't seem Tolkien-esque at all to me.
Yeah, I kind of like that movement away from the Tolkien-esque in the second. More focused on the Qunari, who are more original and unique. I kind of like the Qunari.
Yeah, the first one's a very Tolkien setting, whereas the second one's a much more kind of Game of Thrones setting.
Yeah, but either one's quite the same thing as, robots and sky towers and totally original world concepts. Mass Effect, it's a lot of classic sci-fi RPG, the sci-fi kind of cliches with just rubber forehead aliens, which I also never liked, but and it isn't too creative, if you ask me. But I'm sure there's some more original stuff, like say the Fallout setting, which is kind of cool, but it's also Mad Max-ish, which is it's not totally original. You've got Japanese RPGs, which are just like they kind of almost you have to be off the wall somewhere to create something totally new in order to even really be respectable as a Japanese RPG. So I think generally they're more creative.
Sam, what do you think for that?
Well, I somewhat agree that Japanese settings are more creative. I've had this discussion plenty of times with Scott, for an example, but we both kind of agreed that Western settings tend to have more consistency in what they're trying to achieve, whereas Japanese RPGs tend to be really creative, but the consistency of the setting they're trying to create tends to sometimes be a little all over the place. Like, a good example of this is, if you look at a game like Saga Frontier. Saga Frontier has about 7 different original settings in the game, and while they're all interconnected, they're all very inconsistent with each other.
Oh god, I love Saga Frontier for that. You've got robots and craziness.
It has everything. Like, I adore Saga Frontier. I adore Saga Frontier because if you look at it, it has a gothic setting when you play as Acelius. You have a sort of steampunk setting with the city of Junk. You have, with the character, the robotic character whose name currently escapes me, you have the whole... Yes, that's the character's name. You have the whole sort of robotic sci-fi setting. With Ricky, you have, like, this whole kind of furry fantasy setting. My favorite setting in that game, and this is going to sound really crazy, was Amelia's. Because Amelia's, most of hers takes place in a jail.